What if I told you that managing time isn't the secret to a fulfilling, high-performing life, but managing your energy is? All this time I was aiming to create more time, when maybe I've had it wrong. In today's episode, we're breaking down key takeaways from the book The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz. We're going to explore how your energy, not your time, is your most precious resource. How aligning your performance pyramid of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy can unlock performance, health, and happiness like never before. We'll review how to prioritize activities that fuel you and how this can help you avoid energy drains and add in more zest for life. So grab your coffee or tea, lace up your walking shoes, grab onto that steering wheel, whatever you're doing while you're listening, and let's talk about how to fuel the life you actually want, one energized moment at a time. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Life's Next Lesson Plan. I'm Rachel, and I started this podcast during my 29th and last year as a high school teacher. The goal of my work with Life's Next Lesson Plan, as well as my Live and Learn Patreon, is to create a connection where we are all teachers. We all have lessons and stories to share that can help others. I'm so fortunate to be able to extend the four walls of my previous classroom to an unlimited audience, where we can all learn from each other. And my guests are some of the most inspirational people with the best stories and lessons I know, which is why I want to share them with you. Their words are something everyone should hear. It is my hope that you are able to take away something from each episode to apply to your own life, whether that be a career search, path to a more fulfilling life, or new ideas on current topics. After collapsing from exhaustion in 2007, Arianna Huffington, founder of the Huffington Post and Thrive Global, transformed her approach to work and life, focusing on sleep, mindfulness, and purpose. How many of us feel like we need a break from life? A 12-hour nap? Our hustle culture and pulls on our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy has us all on a fast path to burnout. Using the book The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz and other research, today I want to talk about how we can get off the hamster wheel a bit to try to replenish our energy. To start this conversation, we need to understand the difference between energy and time. I know everyone says that time is the biggest currency, and I actually agreed with this until I started doing the research for this episode, where I'm going to argue that energy, not time, is the fundamental currency. If you look at this in just the simplest of terms, time is finite, whereas energy can be expanded and renewed. Performance, health, and happiness depend on effectively managing energy across multiple dimensions. So we're going to look at the difference between energy management versus what we're all familiar with, time management. Energy management is the strategic use of your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual energy to achieve sustained performance or health or happiness. Instead of focusing solely on how many hours you have in a day, which is what I've been doing, energy management emphasizes how you feel, think, and function throughout the hours of your day. So some of the key principles of energy management are that energy can be expanded and renewed, unlike time. High performance requires this concept called oscillation, which is cycles of intense focus or stress, followed by recovery or rest. Learning about this makes me understand why I'm so exhausted after teaching back-to-back classes with no rest. Aligning tasks with your natural energy rhythms leads to better focus and output, And your energy levels are influenced by your lifestyle factors, which we all know, like sleep, nutrition, exercise, and your mindset. We're going to contrast that for a second with time management, which we're maybe all a little bit more familiar with. That involves planning and organizing tasks to maximize productivity within a fixed period. So controlling your schedule, setting deadlines, prioritizing tasks, how many hours in a day do I have to get X, Y, and Z done? This usually focuses on efficiency and scheduling, and it assumes that all hours of the day are equally productive, which I definitely know for myself is not the case. So time management emphasizes prioritizing your tasks and managing your deadlines of what needs to get done. This often leads to overscheduling and ignores the need for energy renewal. There's a great side-by-side chart of this that I'm going to share on social media, but when you approach things from a time management standpoint, you're looking at it as a quantity of hours and tasks that need to be completed. But if you are approaching it from an energy management standpoint, then you're looking at the quality of energy, physical, emotional, mental. In other words, one approach is just power through, get as much done as quickly as you can with no regard to how you feel or how you feel at the end, whereas the other one is going to look at when the peaks of your day, peaks of your energy are, and align that to your most difficult tasks and then work in breaks. So energy management is more sustained performance and sustained well-being, whereas time management is this maximized productivity in this limited time, because everybody has the mindset that time is money. We want to get through this as quickly as possible, even if we feel awful for the rest of the day after. Another way to think about this is just how we live on an everyday basis, right? We have a to-do list, we have a calendar, we have a schedule. And those are just kind of thrown together like, I have to do this, I have to be here, this has to get done. Whereas we're not really looking at the peak times or the best approach for where to put certain rituals, which is what I want to talk about today. So it's this idea of like just work continuously within the available hours that you have instead of working in alignment with your body and your energy. So the key question, if you're a time management follower, is how am I going to fit this task into my day? And if you're looking at managing your energy, the question would be, how can I best manage my energy for this task? So the benefits of energy management for burnout prevention are that you're prioritizing recovery instead of these long, strenuous periods of work without any breaks. And if you rearrange your schedule differently, like we'll talk about today, this can prevent chronic stress, which we know many of us have. It also leverages your natural energy peaks so that you can actually work more efficiently and effectively and at a peak level rather than maybe multitasking, rushing through something. So that is a completely different approach. And it is a whole person approach, meaning you're considering the emotional and spiritual drivers for the motivation of the tasks that you're completing, not just I have to do this even though I don't want to do this, or this isn't the best time to do this, or I'm not in the best mind space to do this. It's just a different approach, which we'll get into today. And then lastly, it is more sustainable long term. So it ensures that your performance over the long run is peak performance. And so when you're dividing things up based on your energy schedule, you're not just focused on your daily output or how fast you got something done, but how you actually feel at the end of the day. So let's talk about an example of this. Okay, so you have to write a report. You're a student or you're in the corporate world, you have to write a report. So if you were to approach this task from a time management approach, you would say, okay, I think it's going to take me about 3 hours to write this report. I've got a break in the afternoon or after school or before bed. I'm going to take those 3 hours and write the report. Then I'll be done. Just one block of time. If you approach that from an energy management standpoint, what you would say to yourself is, when do I feel the most mentally sharp in my day? Personally, for me, that is the morning. Block out 90 minutes of time for deep work. Then take a break, schedule it in for renewal, a walk, a snack, and return refreshed for another focused session. Couple of things here that I think we would find is that perhaps what we get done is better and takes less time because we are at our peak, and we know we're going to be having a renewal break in there. And so we feel better. Research shows that taking a walk activates your brain. And so you're going to come back to the task, unlike in the last 30 minutes of a 3-hour block, not during a peak time of your day. You are just going to be setting yourself up for ideal achievement and results, and then not even just getting a task done, but not feeling completely depleted when it's over. Okay, so let's talk about one more example. Preparing for a presentation. I mean, this is something teachers have to do. We do 3 to 4 presentations every day, 5 days a week, right? Many jobs. You have to prepare for a presentation. So students have to do this as well. Time management approach, say, okay, I'm going to allocate 2, 3, 4 consecutive hours the day before the presentation to finalize my slides, rehearse, and review my notes, regardless of energy levels or how we're feeling. I'm just getting over a terrible sickness. If I would have left something like this to the last minute and I got ill, it would have been a nightmare, right? The energy management approach is to break the preparation into focused sessions aligned with your personal energy peaks. So if morning is when your highest mental energy, like me, spend 90 minutes refining your key points and structuring the presentation while your focus is still sharp. Do the most mentally tasking activities when your mental energy is highest. I have an energy dip after school, 2:30 at that time. So I'm going to have to take a walk, take a break, do some breathing, get outside, change gears, right, before I can come back to this. And then when my energy is back up a little bit, I can rehearse out loud for a certain amount of time, 45 minutes, let's say, focusing on my delivery and my pacing. And then when I'm winding down and I'm feeling reflective and calm, I should relax myself, not go over the slides again. Build in a relaxing activity, ensure for proper rest, get off screens to ensure good sleep hygiene, and prepare for optimal performance the next day. In a perfect world, because this doesn't always work this way, but if you try this approach with something that you have coming up, and again, I'm just speaking from my job standpoint, this doesn't work great with teaching, although I know there are a lot of teachers who work walk breaks, or when it's nice enough, time outside breaks for the kids and for themselves. And I think that's great. But if you can even just try this on a small scale, or I've been trying this on the weekend, kind of like I know right when I get up is the best time to tackle grading for the weekend, because if I leave it till Sunday night, there's no way. I'll just be upset and angry and tired, and that's no way to unwind. I've done that to myself many times. And so think about how you structure this on a weekend or in an evening or just a day during the week, focusing from a time management perspective versus an energy management perspective. Now that we kind of understand just like this concept and the differences between these two approaches, I want to dig into some more terminology of the book, The Power of Full Engagement. So there's this idea of the performance pyramid or the 4 dimensions of energy. And I've mentioned them already, but I'll repeat them: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And each level builds on the one below it, meaning you need a strong foundation at each stage in order to achieve long-term success and fulfillment. So I'm just going to break down each of the 4 categories, and we can kind of look at, grade ourselves maybe with how we take care of these in our daily lives. And then we'll get into, again, some more reflection and application. Okay, so we'll start with physical energy, which is kind of the foundation of your performance, right? If you're sick, if you didn't get enough sleep, physical energy can affect everything else. It affects your emotional resilience, your mental focus, your spiritual connection. It all becomes more difficult if you are depleted physically. So we all already know we're supposed to be getting 7 to 8 hours of good sleep, right? We know that we're supposed to be fueling our bodies with whole foods and drinking a lot of water, getting movement to reduce fatigue, resting and recovering. This isn't just after exercise, but this is actually incorporating in your day as much as possible short breaks of 5 to 10 minutes after every 90 to 120 minutes of focused work. Again, sometimes easier said than done, right? But I'm going to talk about with this a new concept that I learned as well. We've all heard of circadian rhythms, right? With like your natural waking cycles and your natural sleep cycles and how sunlight can affect that. I learned about ultradian rhythms and the importance of taking breaks to rejuvenate. So we're going to get back to that later, but that's something else new in my research for this episode that I think is fascinating. Let's move on to the second pillar, which is emotional energy, and this is the quality of your energy. So your emotional energy fuels your performance by influencing how well you handle pressure and stress. So if you have a lot of positive emotions like gratitude, compassion, optimism, these things expand your energy, which is why now there's all of this research coming out about gratitude journals and practicing compassion and, positive thinking. While negative emotions like frustration or anger or anxiety drain your energy. Been there, done that. So just having self-awareness and recognizing your emotions and their triggers. Step 1, regulating your emotions. So recognizing, here's a feeling. What is the best way for me to confront it, not repress it, and then work with it? So whether that's deep breathing or mindfulness or a walk, a snack, whatever the case might be, how can you deal with those emotions? And then having positive connections, so leaning into supportive relationships, having people, if I find myself in a funk, I have to change that by seeking someone out, changing my surroundings or environment, and then, kind of rewiring where my brain was going. Gratitude, obviously, we mentioned, is a big part of this for people as well. Reflecting on just positives to boost your mood. And then, tuning into your emotional intelligence. So paying more attention to just the messaging that's going through your brain. How are you processing messages? Being aware of do you hear a lot of internal negative messaging? And then reframing that. I've had to catch myself in this recently. I was doing really well, and then I go through spurts where I don't know if it's the dark days in Wisconsin and the cold or what, but so let's just do a really quick example here. So there's you're co-parenting and you're managing a challenging conversation with an ex-partner. All right. Some people have been here with me, and you know that it could be potentially triggering any difficult conversation, right? This is just one example, but there are many triggering conversations. And if you know that is a possibility, you can say to yourself, okay, I'm aware. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to use some, positive messaging about the good things that I have to come out of this situation, and just be aware that it could happen and be patient with yourself and try to approach it head on. Okay, so that kind of feeds directly into your mental energy, and that definitely determines your ability to concentrate, to be creative, to solve problems, to do any sort of focused, sustained mental task. Takes mental energy. And a lot of us have very mentally taxing days, right? I used to love saying that I was, the queen of multitasking, but I have a lot of balls in the air with especially what I have going on in my life right now. It is actually best to avoid multitasking and focusing on one task at a time. So if you go back to what we've already talked about in the episode, doing one thing well and then replenishing and moving on. And I think, if we're being honest, we would say that if we did more of that, we would get done quicker, and probably our work quality would go up. And then just looking at, again, how we prioritize when we're doing our most difficult tasks. And if we could in any way align them to our most favorable times of the day, we would be doing ourselves a favor. So we'd have more mental flexibility. We would be able to adapt to challenges better. We would, if we worked in breaks, we would probably be more calm during this, which makes us more productive, right? It increases our mental energy. So this is also where people would suggest things like meditation, setting clear boundaries or timelines to minimize distractions. Again, creating rituals and doing, setting your schedule so that it is good for you as much as possible. And when you are freshest, having your to-do list. These are the things that must get done today. These are the hardest things. And so I'm going to do the hardest things when I have the best mental energy. Another example here for this, if we're talking about, let's say, like a content creator who needs to record podcasts in a distraction-free environment. So I've already had to move where I was recording once because of loud noises in the background during today's episode. So you have to block out time as a creator, when the lighting is good or when the environment is quiet, and I can concentrate. It's interesting when I'm either writing or recording, when I am learning that those time frames are best depending on what I'm doing. If it's a lot of research, then I need more mental focus. If I feel like I want to be more calm, I've been recording podcasts more at night, sort of as a reflective thing. So it's just a reflection for me personally. So think about that for yourself as well. All right. Spiritual energy is the last component. And this comes from having a sense of purpose and aligning your daily actions with your core values, which is something we talk a lot about on Life's Next Lesson Plan. This is our deepest source of motivation and sustains our energy when we hit challenges. Okay, so our core values are what truly matter to us and why. We try as much as possible to make value-driven decisions and have value-driven actions. So this is in alignment with my values, so I am going to do this. This is not in alignment with my values, and so it is not a priority for me. And I know that's not always possible, but to think more along those lines. And there's a component here too called legacy thinking, which is reflecting on how you want to be remembered. And this is during my existential crisis here of leaving the classroom after 29 years, this is really interesting. Especially after reaching out to former students and former colleagues, and especially the colleagues who are in retirement now and their identities have kind of changed. Really interesting that you only start engaging in activities that align with these values and this purpose and your legacy. I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. So in this component, you explore the importance of your purpose and how you only say yes to things that align with your purpose, and you draw energy from those things, right? Like recording a podcast after a long day of teaching and then driving home for an hour, it's another thing. But I actually enjoy the act of researching and learning about new things and sharing them when I'm not dealing with people who aren't listening and I have to grade and I have to worry about them, taking a test on this. And especially when I'm interviewing someone who is teaching me something, I get energy, even though normally as an introvert, I, get drained from that. These are deep, meaningful conversations, and those give me energy. So because it fits my purpose and my values, even though it could be considered work, although it's really a hobby at this point, it's aligning with my values. And so I'm drawing energy from that, which is interesting. So an example here, we have an entrepreneur who left a corporate job to create resources for educators, who feels energized by the mission of making teachers' lives easier and more fulfilling. I see these people on LinkedIn all the time, right? There's so many transitioning teacher sites now. Like, we can get you a job doing this, that, and the other thing. And, sign of our times, I guess. But it's kind of what I'm saying with this podcasting venture is just, if it is aligned with your core values, then you should be able to draw energy from it. Not to say that it's not taxing or work or, takes time, but it is fulfilling and it helps serve your purpose. So these 4 levels need to be balanced and in harmony. And if you neglect one area, it's going to affect all the others, like we've talked about. So if you're not feeling well, it drains your emotional resilience. If you have unmanaged emotions, you've got something going on personally, we all know this disrupts our mental focus, right? And if we have a lack of mental focus, it prevents us from prioritizing our purpose and our values, right? So keeping all of these things aligned are what help us from becoming drained. So that's a lot to process, and I want to get us to a break here in a second, but I just want to kind of show you how this might look in a day. And there are a lot of iterations of this, but a daily routine that supports all 4 facets of the performance pyramid. Like if we just break it up: morning, middle of the day, evening. So in the morning, If you are able to start your day with some sort of exercise or movement to hit the physical component, then you do a little bit of gratitude journaling, which hits your emotional component, or meditation, mindfulness. And then you plan your top tasks for the day. That's your mental component. And then you reflect on your goals as your spiritual component. You have a balanced morning. And you can pick and choose what you put in there, but you're paying attention to each of the 4 areas of the pyramid. Midday, for example, you have a healthy meal, that's physical. You connect with a colleague, that's emotional. You have a focused work session, that's mental. And then you can, again, have a reflection, maybe a reset for spiritual renewal. In the evening, you have some sort of wind down routine for physical. I love to get my foam roller out. That seems to really help, or go for a walk. Reflect on your wins from the day, which is emotional. You can do some reading or learning, which is mental, and then spend some time with a loved one or speak to them on the phone or something, which is spiritual. So if you think about the different facets of your day and how you can balance out so that you have each of those 4 components, you're managing your energy, not just your time, which is going to enhance your productivity and your overall personal well-being. Okay, so we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about these cool ultradian rhythms that I learned about. We're going to make a little list, things that invigorate us, things that drain us. I'm going to give you some more real life examples from research, and then we're going to get you out of here with some action steps. So we'll be back in a bit. 100% of men and women have hormones. And with the increased presence of processed foods and environmental toxins, it's more important than ever to make mindful choices in the products we use every day. That's why I trust Hue & Grace, high-performing, clean products designed to support hormone health while reducing exposure to harmful chemicals. Because this topic has been my primary focus since ending birth control in 2024 in an attempt to regulate my changing midlife hormones, after making healthy swaps in my diet, personal care products, and exercise routine, I've been able to lower my dose of anxiety medication I once relied very heavily on, and have restored balance to my nervous system and cleared up the brain fog I was experiencing in perimenopause. Hue & Grace has played a key role in this transformation, offering safe, effective, non-toxic solutions that support my wellness journey. If you listened to episode 16 with certified Mayo Clinic health and wellness coach Tracy Danielson Mitchell, you heard our talk about the importance of hormone health. Coming in March, I'll be doing a deep dive into heart and hormone health on my Live and Learn Patreon, where I'll list all the tests, supplements, and product swaps that have helped me balance my hormones in my 50s. Plus, Tracy will be back to answer all your heart and hormone health questions at the end of the month. If you're on this journey with me and are interested in exploring Hue & Grace's trusted, non-toxic products, visit my link at hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to receive 10% off and free shipping. You can also reach out to me at any time with questions at nextlessonplan@gmail.com. Live and learn with me as we focus on living fully and feeling our best. Visit hueandgrace.com/lessonplan to see how easy it is to start making some healthy swaps on the way to non-toxic living. To those of you who have followed me for a while, you know that I value mental and physical wellness. Personally, I've worked with a few different coaches over the years and even been one myself. If you are looking for education and support in your own wellness journey, I would love to invite you to the wellness community I am currently in that keeps me accountable daily with my nutrition and movement. If you are a Facebook user, you can search for our free group called Team MG. This group is led by my coach, Megan Grimaud, who is a certified trainer and nutrition coach. She offers lots of education and support for your wellness journey. If you want to get to know Coach Megan more, you can follow her on Instagram at all lowercase Megan, MEGAN _Grimord, GRIMORD, or even listen to her on episode 10 of the podcast. She has also created a discount code for my listeners. Just go to her website, www.team-mg.com, and enter code LessonPlan10 to get $10 off any of her premium coaching packages for the first month. Coach Megan is a busy mom like me who works full-time, so I appreciate her practicality mixed with some tough love to keep me going. So before we come back from break, I'm going to answer 2 Ask the Teacher Anything questions. The first question was, how do you balance personal growth with the demands of creating content for your podcast? Can I answer that with not well? Yeah, it's been a challenge just because I'm learning so many new things at one time while I'm still teaching full time and trying to wind down a career. And if I take my own advice from this episode, there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. There's a lot of physical demands. It's just a lot of extra workload. So I've been doing my best, I'll just say. I have been trying to prioritize things. That's why I was so interested in this episode, because I always operated from a time management perspective, and now I can see that that's not the best way to do things. And as I look at whatever I'm going to be doing next and how I'm going to be structuring my days, I would like to have more freedom in how I can structure my days, because, living by bells that tell you when you can eat and go to the bathroom and go outside is difficult after 29 years. And every job has some aspect of that, I know, but just thinking about how to design things better. If you know more, you can do better, right? So work in progress there. Second question, how do you hope Life's Next Lesson Plan impacts your listeners? I'm a journalism teacher. I'm an English teacher. I love stories, right? I love connecting. I love that reading and storytelling can help connect us and help us become more empathetic. I think the more we can get out of our own experiences and hear other people's experiences is good for us, right? We need more connection. We need more empathy. We need to feel less alone in our journeys. And so I just hope that there's a lot of professional podcasts that I listen to and books that we all read, and we all hear the same stories. And it's kind of my hope that all of these tremendous lives that I've been able to be a part of, bringing awareness to the stories that wouldn't normally be heard, that's what keeps me going. I don't know for how long, and that remains to be seen how impactful it is, I guess. But that's at the heart of it. I kind of go back to, the very first lesson that I teach in beginning journalism with Humans of Homestead and Brandon Stanton, just going up to people in Central Park and asking them questions about their lives and how people gravitated toward that. These are strangers. Again, these are stories that people would not typically hear. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story should be appreciated on some level. And so to me, I just feel really lucky to be able to share the stories of the people that I know. And I just had somebody reach out and say, hey, you should interview my friend. Here's his name, reach out to him. Awesome. Because, if you think someone has a fascinating story, I would love to be able to share and, connect with them and just spread more stories. So hopefully that's what the impact has been and will continue to be. we are back from break and ready to do some work on identifying our own personal energy sources and drains and learning about ultradian rhythms, this cool new thing that I'm learning about. So we are going to make a list. If you need to pause and get paper or pull up a doc, or you can always come back and do this later, but we're just going to have 2 columns, okay? And I'm going to do this also. This is our personal energy audit. So on our list, we're going to have on the left things that invigorate us, and then on the right, things that drain us. For the purposes of time, I'm just going to take the ones that are at the top of my head. So I might not have an exhaustive list here. And again, you can work on your list over time. So things that invigorate me for sure are exercise, fresh air, walks, kayaking, boating, meditating, podcast interviews, good music. Okay, if I have those things invigorate me, make me happy, give me energy. Things that drain me: grading, sitting inside all day, answering countless emails, small talk, listening to whining or excuses. Okay, so it says a lot, right? I'm sure, your list will be eye-opening or maybe not too surprising for you. All right, so this is where we want to talk about aligning our tasks with our natural energy peaks and troughs, and where we put things that drain us and how to break that up with things that invigorate us, right? So this is, the key to managing your energy for peak performance are these ultradian rhythms, which are natural cycles that occur in our bodies every 90 to 120 minutes. These rhythms influence our energy levels, our focus, and our performance. So unlike circadian rhythms, which are on a 24-hour cycle, the sleep-wake cycle, ultradian rhythms happen multiple times throughout the day and affect how long we can stay mentally and physically sharp. So for 90 to 120 minutes, your body and brain are in a period of high energy and focus, making that the ideal window for deep work, problem solving, and creative tasks. After that peak, you naturally experience a 20-minute dip where energy and concentration decline. This is your body's signal to rest, recover, rejuvenate, relax. If you ignore this dip, which we often have to, we push through it with caffeine or sheer willpower, this leads to fatigue, irritability, and reduced performance over time. Yeah, you can say that again. Okay, so the authors Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz highlight that understanding and aligning with these rhythms can dramatically improve your productivity and well-being. So instead of forcing ourselves to power through an 8-hour workday, try as much as you can to work with your body's natural energy cycles. Okay. Again, in an ideal world, right? We would be able to schedule our lives this way, but as much as possible, just to think about it, bring an awareness to it, and work on blocks of time. So working in a 90-minute focused block where you schedule your most important tasks like writing or strategic thinking or recording podcasts, grading, your draining activities. Try to minimize your distractions during this brain peak time and give it your all. But you must take a 15 to 20 minute renewal break after each 90 to 120 minute session. You must go for a walk. You must take something off your invigorating list, stretch, do a light exercise, meditate, deep breathe, have a healthy snack, hydrate, connect with a loved one. You must do that. And then match your tasks to your energy levels. So your high focus tasks should occur during your peak energy periods, and take your routine or administrative tasks, those that don't take a lot of brain power, they're not as draining, during your lower energy times. Again, as much as possible. So if I'm going to apply my ultradian aligned approach to podcast recording, in the morning when I have peak energy is when I should be doing my research and writing or scripting my episode, which requires more deep focus. Then in mid-morning, I would have a 20-minute break in an ideal world to step outside for fresh air or light movement. Late morning, for renewed focus, I could record the episode when my mental energy is rebounding. And then when my energy dips in the afternoon, I could edit or respond to listener comments, any tasks requiring less intense focus. Like sometimes this is when I'll just craft a couple social media posts or something, using the scripts that I already have to then, just kind of wordsmith some things. You could share how understanding ultradian rhythms helps you in other areas, like we've talked about co-parenting. This could be managing family dynamics or dating. So again, with co-parenting, you can use high energy times for emotionally demanding conversations or even scripting how to approach those conversations. Someone gave me the suggestion for dating in your 50s to plan meaningful dates or connections when you feel most energized, right? And if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of, 50-year-old woman, is recognizing how your hormonal shifts interact with your ultradian dips and plan your rest accordingly, if only, right? So, lesson planning or grading, these things that take maybe more sustained focus would be best for me to do in the morning, and then schedule like a short dog walk or something, and then, come back at it. But really interesting to think about your day in terms of these 90 to 100-minute chunks of time, isn't it? I wanted to share a couple of real-life success stories of this in action, and then leave you with some action steps today to wrap this up. So I wanted to give you another individual example and then a couple of group examples of what this looks like. I had talked about Arianna Huffington at the beginning of the episode, but another individual, Serena Williams, who, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, the professional tennis player. She uses energy management with her training and her rest in order to, balance all these 4 areas. So she prioritizes sleep, practices mindfulness, leans on her support system, and this shows how her physical preparation and emotional well-being obviously operate at peak performance. So she creates rituals for recovery with her sleep routines and her mindfulness practices to avoid burnout. And Arianna Huffington, who I mentioned earlier in the episode, who crashed and burned, her new venture is actually organized around this idea of optimizing your peak performance times and then building in breaks for yourself. 2 organizations that operate this way as well are Google. So they want to emphasize energy renewal at the workplace, and their workplace culture is known for encouraging this. So their campus has nap pods, meditation rooms, fitness centers, and they acknowledge that employees who can rest and recharge perform better. By prioritizing physical and mental energy, Google fosters innovation and sustained productivity. Now I've also heard that they have like on-site dry cleaners and all the conveniences to make you not ever want to leave the workplace. But to their credit, they do have these recharge stations, and they definitely are putting their money where their mouths are, that they feel it is important to have these breaks. The Navy SEALs, obviously an intense group and huge need for focus and balancing high stress missions with recovery. So they teach controlled breathing, They do mental resilience exercises. They structure downtime after peak performance times. And obviously, they have very positive outcomes in their training programs and the caliber of the recruits that they have. Their increased productivity and improved well-being. I mean, if that isn't a place where you could easily run yourself into the ground physically, emotionally, mentally, right? You have to balance that out and keep those 4 foundational areas all in play, right? So here are our takeaways for this episode. I want you to perform a personal energy audit over the next week. Look at each day. Might be Groundhog Day for you, it feels like, but start with one energy enhancing habit, like a daily walk or a mindfulness or gratitude journal practice, something like that. Set aside time for an activity that brings you joy, invigorates you, right? Aligns with your personal values, especially if you can build it in after a sustained period of focus. And just really think about how, these 90 to 100-minute chunks of time can be broken up rather than I'm going to work on this for 4 hours without a break. Okay. And then pay attention to the work quality that comes out of that, and then also how you feel when you're done, and then how you feel about approaching the next task the next time you have to do it, right? When you're maybe restructuring it in a little bit of a different way. So these practical strategies, a lot of them were newer to me. And again, sometimes, they're easier to implement than others, but I thought a lot of it was new and interesting to me. And I really thought that, I had my time management down, which apparently was maybe not the right focus. And I do think that there is something to be said for how a task makes you feel. The time of day, definitely, that you approach a task makes a difference. And so I hope that this was helpful for you today. Thank you again for joining me today. I want to remind you that if you are looking for additional content, I do have my Live and Learn Patreon that you can subscribe to for $5 a month, or you can explore individual episodes and collections tailored to your interests. You can also gift someone in your life a membership who enjoys the podcast or who might benefit from one of my series. My hope is that by hearing these lessons woven in with the real stories of my life, you'll want deeper connection to the human experience. You can also find me counting down my last days in the classroom on the Life's Next Lesson Plan YouTube. And you can join us on my website at lifesnextlessonplan.com for a lot of freebies that are attached to past episodes, as well as all of the podcasts and a place to enter your Ask the Teacher Anything questions. We'll see you back here next week with another new guest.